Emisiunea vă este oferită de Sixt, partener de mobilitate al fermierilor români prin AgroTV.
Walter Blom Plants are o gamă exclusivă de aproximativ 3000 de soiuri de plante perene, pe care le pun la dispoziția cultivatorilor și companiilor din domeniu atât în țările de jos, cât și din străinătate. Plantele lor perene sunt exportate în toată Europa, Statele Unite și Orientul Îndepărtat. Adaptat la cererea clienților și a pieței, Walter Blom Plants furnizează cea mai înaltă calitate pe tot parcursul anului. Cu expertiză în creșterea, reproducerea, multiplicarea și producerea plantelor perene, Walter Blom Plants este un jucător important și de înaltă calitate pe piață.
Vă vom spune acum povestea sămânții care pleacă de la, într-un laborator în care este bine întreținută, tratată și ajunge până să fie acea plantă pe care o știm. Vorbim despre plantele perene astăzi și pentru că trebuie să avem un specialist care să ne spună, am stat de vorbă și stăm de vorbă cu Stefan. We discuss with Stefan. Pleased to meet you, Stefan.
Good to meet you, Bogdan.
We discussed because the perennial plants that you are breeding, your company, the name of the company was?
It's Walter Blom Plants.
Okay, and you have some other friends where we are here?
We are in the facility from Iribov.
Okay, then you together do these things. You take the perennial plants from the seeds until the plant when you deliver to the customer, yeah?
Yeah, we're starting with either cuttings or material from the lab, from tissue culture. That's being planted onto a plug, and it goes through a phase of first rooting and then growing until it's reached a size that we can deliver out to the customer. And we need something that a grower can take and plant into maybe a 9 centimeter pot, but maybe it's a 3 liter, so a 19 centimeter, much bigger pot. They need a good strong plug that they can use for whatever purpose they want.
And today you will tell us the story of what we can do also manually, also with some machines, some very interesting machine that will tell us a little bit before we start the material, and you tell us the story exactly how it's doing.
A lot of work is traditionally done by hand. It's harder and harder to find people to do that work, so we're looking very seriously at automation, machines that can take on some of the work. But there is still an element of handwork, so you can see in some cases we do a lot with a machine, but the last pieces still need to be done by hand.
I heard about Vitotron, something like this. You will show us something like this. Very important. Vitotron is like in science fiction sometimes.
Yeah, a phytotron is a completely enclosed environment growing area, so we have complete control over temperature, light, humidity, and that means we give the plants, which can be quite fragile in the beginning, we give them the very best conditions.
Don't tell us too much. Let's start the story with you, with Stefan. We have a story about from the seeds until the plants, and you see it here in AgroTV. Let's do it.
Walter Blom Plants continuă să se bazeze pe tradiția sa de 160 de ani de fiabilitate și servicii, îmbrățișând în același timp progresul în reproducerea, înmulțirea și creșterea și testarea plantelor. Atenția pentru clienți și comunicarea directă cu aceștia asigură fiecărui cultivator cel mai bun start posibil pentru afacerea sa. Contractele de lungă durată îi oferă Walter Blom Plants acces la cei mai buni exportatori și producători din lume, inclusiv crema cultivatorilor olandezi, în timp ce cunoștințele acumulate timp de mai multe generații sunt folosite pentru a asigura cea mai bună calitate. Un furnizor modern, perfect adaptat unei ere solicitante, Walter Blom Plants combină experiența cu entuziasmul și flexibilitatea pentru a ajuta cultivatorii de astăzi să-și încânte clienții.
This is our small technical tissue culture lab, where we initiate varieties into sterile tissue culture. We then build up small quantities of elite material, which we can then send to a production lab to make larger quantities. So everything here is free of any pathogens, so bacteria, fungus. We test as well for viruses. So we're trying to make the plants as healthy and as clean as possible. and that's the starting point for the production. So here we are holding small quantities of a big range of varieties, and we're developing the protocol to multiply and to root the plants in tissue culture. So the tissue culture is they are growing in these containers with a special media, with fertilizer and feeding and some plant hormones, and that allows them to grow and quite fast. So every 4 to 5 weeks we need to cut these plants and culture them. The material comes in from the laboratory here to be planted in the trays, and in the past it came in a container like this, and the plants are just loose in the agar, and they have to be taken out by hand and planted into the plug. Now we have also a system where we can put the plants into a mini tray in a container with the same media, so the same rooting media. If this works, then we are able to transplant these automatically into the plug. So rather than someone doing it by hand, a machine can do it. So this is a change in the technology going forward, and it helps a little bit with the price, but it mostly helps with the fact that we have less people available to do the work. So you have to find another way of doing it. The ladies here are planting the material that's coming into the trays. They grade a little bit, so they try and keep the plant size the same in a tray. Once the tray is full, then it's moved here onto the trolleys you can see behind you, and that's the point where it gets taken to its place in the nursery to grow and root. So these plants have come out of a really nice environment. It's been 100% humidity. They've had all the feeding and light and water that they need. They now come back into the real world, so that's a shock. So we have a period of 2 to 3 weeks, which is crucial, where the conditions have to be really good to get the best possible result. So that's the next step. So they're now back in compost, in a tray, and in a minute we'll see where they go to be grown on, or to start their life back in the real world. This is a new project. It's been running a few years, but this is peonies, so also growing in tissue culture. So you can see they get taller, so they're in a bigger container with a nice root. This is completely new variety. Doesn't have a name yet. It's still under a code. It comes from a breeder in the United States. So, and peony being quite a slow crop to grow, these will start coming on the market probably in 2024, 2025 at the earliest. So this is looking to the future. But the peony, we don't plant into a plug. So everything we've seen until now is taking the plant and putting it into a plug. The peony comes into a crate. So we can see the ladies here, and they plant into loose ground. So a crate filled with compost. Because the peony gets quite big and makes a big heavy root, it doesn't fit in a plug, so we have to give it more room to grow and develop. So this is the newest, most modern concept for bringing that young plant that comes out of the lab back into the world. We said earlier it's been growing in a really controlled, perfect environment, and we now try to bring it back into the real world. That's a big shock for the system. And what we have here is a phytotron, and everything is controlled. The humidity, the temperature, the lighting. So it gives the plant the best possible start for the first 2 to 3 weeks of its life. And we see normally if you have a plant through the first 2.5 weeks, it starts making new roots, it starts making new leaves, and then it's okay, it can live on its own. But the first week to 10 days, maybe 2 weeks is critical. And what we have here is giving the plant absolutely the best possible chance of surviving. So we've seen the newer technology with the phytotron. This is the way it's been done for many, many years. The plants were planted into the plug, and then they come to a greenhouse. So we have here an area in the greenhouse with a very high humidity, temperature controlled, light controlled, and we are trying to get that plant that came out of the plastic container from the lab. We're trying to develop new leaves and new roots. And this example is 1.5 weeks old, and you can see already nice new white root coming around the plug. It starts to make some new foliage. Depending on the variety, it will stay here for maybe 1 week up to maximum 4 weeks, normally 2 to 2.5 weeks. And then we move it to another location where it can grow a little bit more slowly and take time to develop before we deliver to the customer.
So, Stefan, these are interesting things because these are roots.
These are the roots. We are at the end of the season. It's beginning of April. So outdoors, these would be starting to grow. We're in the cold store here, and this is the remains of orders that were shipped maybe in January or February this year. So here we have astilbes, and these are hostas. And you can see here you have a nice root system. You have a nice growing nose. The hosta has one nose, maybe a few small ones at the side. The astilbes we grade in different sizes, but you can see 1, 2, 3 noses here.
So how many months can stay like this?
If it's a good quality plant and you store it at the right temperature.
What is the temperature?
For short term, we store at +2 to 0. For long term, we freeze. So then we drop just below 0, maybe -1, -2. But for instance, the hosta, we deliver a lot of hosta to customers in May and June. So after their busy spring season, they can pot. The plant will then grow really fast in the summer, and sometimes they will sell some in the autumn, but mostly it means they have a really nice big plant in a pot for the next spring.
Okay, so how many months can stay in this situation?
If you take a hosta, you could store it a year if you wanted to.
It's important.
It's not normal, but it's possible. Most times we say we would like to harvest the roots in November, December, January out of the field. We ship them then in December, January, February, March. And then I say for some variety we would freeze them and store them and maybe deliver in May and June. It's possible to store longer, but it doesn't actually help.
Okay, and the roots are from which plant there?
These are from hostas, so the white root is a hosta. These darker ones are astilbes, but we have maybe 200 or 300 different varieties, so it's a huge range. So there's many different opportunities and possibilities. But
So you take not the plants, you take the roots. And it's better to take the plants when it's growing?
Well, yeah, you have two options. A plant like an astilbe, it's difficult to grow from a plug. So the root is a very good option, and an astilbe does really well from a root. A hosta also grows very well from a root. To make a good hosta in a pot, you need a little bit longer time. You can also grow the hosta from a plug from the tissue culture, from the laboratory material. But that starts smaller. So for the grower, it goes into a smaller pot, maybe takes a little bit longer. the root can go into a bigger pot and maybe make a larger plant more quickly.
So it's better like roots for the future plant, like say.
Yeah, I don't think one is better than the other, but they offer the grower different possibility. So
they can choose.
They can choose, and for some grower, they like the plug because you can automate it, so you can go through a potting machine more easily. That's quicker. Other growers say we like a bigger pot, and for a bigger pot, maybe the root is a better starting material. So it's very much depending on the grower, the pot, what they want to do, who their customer might be. So there is a lot of. It's not always an easy decision. What is the right?
They are their decision.
Yeah, and I don't say any grower makes the wrong decision. It has to fit in their system. It has to do what they want to do, and then we say, okay, if that's what you want to do, this is a good option. Oh, you want to do it a different way? Maybe we should start with a different product. Okay, so we're now at the point where the plants have grown on for a few weeks, normally 3 to 4 weeks, and we grade them. So we are now taking the small ones and putting them together, and the middle ones and the big ones. So this machine, the trays are brought into the machine on one conveyor. They come here and are being picked up by the grabbers. The grabbers take them, and you see them now, they go into the black spaces. The machine takes a camera and decides how big they are. So the photos are analysed, and then they get placed behind into 3 different rows, small, medium, big. And that means that when they go back into the greenhouse, you do not have a big plant growing over the top of a small plant, so they can grow more uniformly, and hopefully the product that we deliver to the customer is very uniform and of a good quality. So this works really well when we have bigger quantities, and the machine can just keep going for hour after hour. And in a minute we'll see the old-fashioned way where people are doing it by hand, and that works well as well, but you are relying then on someone judging, is this a small plant, a medium plant or a big plant? And with the camera, it's very precise work. Now we are back at again the old-fashioned way, doing it by hand. The tables here are used to sort varieties that are not uniform, or maybe the plug size is different and the machine cannot cope with them. So this is then the handwork where we look at the plants physically. Someone looks at them and grades into different sizes. It can be the sort, can be the tray size, can be in something like this where the plant is not grown so well, so there's not enough root in the plug to lift it up with the machine. So can be different reasons, but there is still some hand sorting needed to get everything to the right quality. We're now in the greenhouse where we let the plants grow and develop until they're ready for delivery. They come here after their first 2-3 weeks at the other location in the phytotron or in the greenhouse, and they now get time to develop more root and to grow until we have a nice strong plug that we can ship out to customers. And what you can see, we have here a label. The label tells us the week it was planted and the week we expect we can deliver. This is an agapanthus planted in week 6, and if I take a plug out, so we are now in week 15, so these are 9 weeks old. And agapanthus, we know they are slower grower, they take a little bit more time, but you see we have a nice root, a nice plant, and this is ready for delivery in another 1 or 2 weeks. Now in an area where we are collating the orders ready for delivery. So the plants here will be shipped next week, week 16. So the The nursery is informed mostly 2 or 3 weeks before what will be shipped. They are then collecting the plants from the nursery and bringing everything together that we know that we have the orders ready and can control everything before shipping. So these plants are mostly 7, 8, 9 weeks old and should have a nice root and a good plant on top of the plug.
Okay, Stefan, we are almost of the end of the story because these flowers, these little flowers, will be delivered to the customer from all over the world, maybe also in Romania.
They could well go to Romania. These ones in particular are going to a customer just down the road in Holland. But yeah, that little plant we saw has grown. It now has a nice root system and it's ready in its tray to be shipped out. So around us we see orders that will be ready for shipping to customers across Europe and further in week 16, so next week. And yeah, we hope that the customer can make a really nice plant and have something to sell and make the people happy wherever they happen to be.
Emisiunea v-a fost oferită de Sixt, partener de mobilitate al fermierilor români prin AgroTV.